Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Powercast, where today we will be talking about Power Book 4 Force Season 3, Episode 10, The Beginning of the End. This is, of course, the series finale in Power Force. So, should be a very interesting discussion. I want you guys to get comfortable because we have a lot to say today. I'm your host, Richard Bailey Jr., and today I'm joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How's it going, Dana?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to talk about this because it's been a long time coming, and we had ups and downs when it came to this show, but we made it through. Woo!
Yes, indeed, we did make it through the beginning of the end. Like I said, the name of the episode, and I'm glad that this show is over with, and I will explain all of my details about that later. But let me just address this first and foremost. I want to give a very special shout out to our very good friend, Mr. Gary A. Swaby. Of course, I think that you guys have already mentioned in the past, he actually had an infection that it caused a lot of issues with him because he has sickle cell. I did speak to him today. He's feeling a lot better today, but he's still very weak and he needs to rest. So unfortunately, he cannot join us for this show today. He did have quite a bit of comments that I will be sharing later on as we start getting into this discussion. But overall, he wanted to extend to everybody a heartfelt thanks for the prayers and well wishes. He's very appreciative of that. He did want to apologize to you guys. He couldn't be on the show today. But don't worry, he will be back. It's important for him to take care of himself. You got to take care of your health whenever you have issues. So I just wanted to put that out there. But he did want to thank you all for the prayers. He's definitely doing a lot better. So look forward to having him back on the show. So for today's conversation, I'm going to let Dana go first with her takeaways because, like I said, Dana has a lot to say about this. I believe she's actually seen this episode before me and Gary saw the episode, so she definitely has a lot more to say. So, Dana, when you are ready, take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a theory. Not a theory. I'm going to start with an actual thing that movie studios, TV studios, studios in general do. And this will kind of explain why we got what we got and why we didn't get what we wanted. And that does not mean Ghost appearing. We'll get into that later on as well. When a TV show or when a studio no longer wants to renew a deal so then that way their actors can get more money for that show, for that role, what they will do is cancel the show. And they will then create another show as a repackaging of the old show. Anybody remembers Disney Channel, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody? Remember, it took place in the hotel. Everything was great. Then suddenly it was canceled. But then we got the new show, The Sweet Deck of Life of Zack and Cody, which essentially is the same show, but on a boat. That way, you don't have to pay the actors a higher salary because this is a new show. What? It has the same actors, has the same premise, different location, but it's not the same show. So therefore, you can get away with not paying them the more money. Braden, the actor who plays Braden, Giovanni Paul, I think it's Polo. Forgive me if I botched the last name, but the actor who played Braden was interviewed by TMZ and was explained that, hey, we weren't paid the amount of money because of the show and it was canceled. So now that we know what Legacy is and what it isn't, and why the finale and the show itself didn't have mainly a lot of satisfying or compelling or even huge death scenes or any death scenes really, except for like one or two people, is because I feel this Legacy is going to be a direct continuation of Force, which is why it ended the way it ended, which we'll get into whether or not that's good. But essentially, we're just now going back to New York City, doing the same shenanigans that we did for the previous show, Ghost, or even going back to the original Power. So overall, I was disappointed and very frustrated with this show. I expected there to be a conclusion, really, to a lot of these characters. I expected deaths. Miguel, why are you here? I don't understand. Even Jenard, someone, D-Mac, when he was like, I'm going out, Uncle Tommy, I got my gun. We got nothing. We didn't get any of that, really. And instead, we got the continuation of things with no conclusions to storylines. Vic and Jenard are now teamed up. Shanti's running Chicago with Miguel, which is great. But what happens to Tommy? Maria's still in Mexico. He gave that wonderful call, which we'll get into, about that, him, I'm coming home to you, baby. But now he's not coming home right now. It's going to take some time. Also, we have the coalition of the cartel crew. We also have a lot of the coalition with the coalition itself. It's gotten much bigger. Okay, and then what? So it's going to be very interesting when to see the same storylines carried over into Legacy. Jenard and Vic obviously most likely is going to travel to New York to go get Tommy. Even if you talk about what's going on with Tariq, he's still continuing his shenanigans in the next Legacy as well. And so I was whelmed. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. I was just whelmed with this entire thing. And I thought it set up some really great moments. But so starting from my takeaways, what we have is the fact from the very beginning, Kate. I love the fact that Kate is sober. Because every 5 seconds, I'm just hoping, I'm like, please don't do nothing crazy. She lost her son. That could easily be a trigger for a relapse. I love the fact that we got JP. We got Herman's daddy. JP made an appearance. He was all crying and whatnot. I was like, where were you before? Go meet your grandson. Go meet D-Mac. Are you going to come and associate and mingle a little bit with the family? And Kate explained, they don't really do that there, which kind of was sad because I wanted to learn more about him, even for a brief second. But we didn't get that at all. But I am happy that Kate is still sober. And she did say, she's going back to Queens, which again, Legacy, which is what we've seen in Power. Everybody's going back to Queens. And she said that D-Mac and, of course, Tommy has a place there always. The grandson could come around when he's born, I'm sure. I thought that she was going to probably join Maria in Mexico, but she didn't. She's in Jersey and not Jersey, in Queens, and that's great for her. Good for her. I'm excited about that. D-Mac fully immersed himself in the life. Remember when Genesis came over and he was like, I want to give you this money. It's blood money. I don't want your money. And he's like, no, I belong to this. This is my life. This is who I am. So he is fully immersed into this, which kind of goes into the monologue that Tommy said to Tariq, which Tariq then reiterated back to Tommy, is you can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He is not going to pursue higher academics. He has fully accepted and embraced his path as, being on the streets, being a part of Tommy's group and following Tommy wherever he goes. So obviously this means he's going to go to Legacy. I did like the interaction that he had with Tariq. It was interesting, is what I say. And I wanted to bring up Tariq, saving the day. I like how they did that slow reveal because, Tommy was everywhere you go, he was all circled by people and he was gonna die at that moment. He was like, Tommy, no! And then he's like, boom, boom, bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, oh, is it? And I know a lot of people at that time, they was like, it's gonna be Ghost. It was Ghost. Because remember, at the very end, and technically it was Ghost, because at the very end of Power Book Ghost, Tariq made the deal with the African guy who I can't remember what his name was, but remember he spoke like this, and he had a lot of money, and he also had a lot of the drug industry. And he was like, let me bring in your product, let me work with you, and you won't even know that I'm there. I'm a silent partner. You would be like a ghost. So little Ghost Jr. came and saved the day. Now here's a question that I posed on Twitter and essentially got my behind kicked for this. Tariq seemed off a little bit. He seemed like he had a plan and he was plotting, and that plot and plan seemed a little bit nefarious. I don't know who was nefarious against Tommy, that his whole goal was to get Tommy to come to New York so that he could set him up with something. I don't know. But that entire conversation with D-Mac, he kind of was looking at him sideways. Now, you could both argue that they were pensive because obviously D-Mac's father just died. I think that when we saw a lot of the previous season involving Ghost, Powerful Ghost, was Tariq regretting essentially killing his father. And remember, it was the whole situation where he decided that as long as he's in this life, he can't have a family. Remember, he went to his mother and was like, I can't have a family of my own. It's too much. They're going to come after me. They're going to come after you. So I'm not going to have a family. And that's when she gave him an embrace and was like, I'm always here for you, baby. But he also seemed very down about that. He also lost Braden. Remember, Braden, just like Jenard, got involved with the little druggy drugs. He was getting high on his own supply. And so what he said to him at the end was, look, you can work for me. That's great, but we can never be partners. We're not going to be friends. So thank you, but stay away from me. And that really did tear him up inside because that was his ride or die. That was his Tommy. And now he has to come back to Tommy and be like, hey, so I don't have anybody. Do you want to be my friend? Can we go to New York and do things? Which could be exciting, but I'm going to reiterate, and Richard will go into what Gary's comments are. I hope it doesn't become repetitive because that's essentially what it just could be. I got really excited thinking that we were going to go to a new location. I love New York City. I live in New York City. I'm in New York City. But I want to see some palm trees, maybe a cactus. Give me the desert, some ocean, something. I thought that we were going to a completely different location. And instead, we're going right back to New York City, which I understand that is the birthplace of power. But I thought we were going to extend a little bit, and there's no extension there. So I was slightly disappointed with that situation. Another thing that I did like and will address even more of later is the fact that Sang's my man. Sang essentially is Sax, maybe. You could make that argument. He could be a little Sax, or he could be, oh, I forgot the name of the man. Wasn't there an attorney, like a district attorney, someone in the original Power series that then later went to Ghost? It was played by Victor Garber. I cannot remember what the man's name was. But basically, he's him. So Tommy has someone working in government along with him. So I love the rise of Singh because to me, Singh started out as a side player. He was a little side character, right? He worked for Stacy. He made sure everything was great. He didn't put up any arguments. And then we started to learn, like, hey, he's not corrupt. He is someone who is compromised because he wants to keep his wife alive. And that cartel is holding on to him. So he isn't someone who is like, I'm going to be evil. He is desperate because he kept saying, my wife, my wife, my wife. He loves his wife. He doesn't want her to die. But he is playing his role immaculately. And so when we got that scene where he was, Bobby came into the office and was like, I know everything that you're doing. I'm going to blackmail you too. I was like, oh no. But then he flipped the switch and he was like, no, wait, hold on now. We're gonna work this together. And even though he was being blackmailed, I love the fact that he said, look, I don't care anymore. As long as my wife is good, just send me to jail. I'll just be in jail and you'll still never accomplish anything. And Bobby, his desperation, much like Stacy, to get Tommy, put him in that pickle. Because like, where's your backup? I was waiting for the backup because he said the line, I got backup coming for you, Tommy. And I was like, oh snap. But he was BSing. But when Singh went and killed Bobby, I was like, ooh. I'm wondering if that was premeditated or was that something right there that he thought of? Because tricking Tommy, he could still want his wife alive, him alive, and be a U.S. attorney. So that's kind of what I would really love to know. Was that premeditated from the beginning? Or was this something that you did on the fly and just prayed to Jesus that it worked out in the end for you? But I found that entirely just fascinating. And to me, that was the only unpredictable moment kind of in the show. So I like that part. I did want to touch upon Vic for like one more second. Vic, we almost had it all with you. We almost had it all, but I'm done with the life. I want to just go to another country, milk some cows, get some chickens, be normal, have a bar, take my woman out on a regular date, and be just a regular man. But instead, we got the same old Vic from season uno. What happened? Now, I understand the fact that he is the last living Flynn. Tommy has came in and just ruined his entire family. Destroyed his entire family. I love how he doesn't like take ownership of anything that he's done. But Tommy did kind of destroy everything, to be fair. And so that news, already compounded with his depression, kind of really just made everything a lot worse for him. So instead, he left his good lady and decided instead to go back to Chicago and now teamed up with Jenard. And of course, this now means they're going to go to New York. So am I excited for this team up? No. I'm actually disappointed in Vic because I thought that we was going to get something new. But in a way, I kind of do understand his frustration and his depression. But Vic can't do anything right when it comes to killing Tommy. Because remember that little knife assassin with his little 1-inch knife of, I'm going to kill you, Tommy. Vic says hello. I think this show in general just does a really bad job of like accurately assassinating people with a knife because it just never works out for them. So I understood, but I didn't really like Vic's decision. I wanted him to be the one that made it out. That just say you don't necessarily need this life. But he is determined to kill Tommy. So maybe if he actually, he's not going to succeed. But in theory, if he succeeds, then is it over for him? Like, when does it end? Is it now like I have to restore my family's name and get back into the drug business? Because remember, the reporter was like, oh, and now the gangs own the street. It's no longer the Flynn's. That was like, oh, was that needed? That was shady. Very shady. So I can understand Vic, being upset about that. But yeah, that was an interesting part. Of course, we'll get into a lot more stuff. So that's everything that I have to say so far.
Okay, outstanding takeaways from you, Dana, as always. You said a lot of points that I do agree with, but I'm going to get into a couple of other things here. First and foremost, let me say this. We have said multiple times on this podcast, clearly, this third season of Force, I think it is obviously the best season that they have made for the show. All the episodes leading up to this episode, I thought, especially the last episode with Diamond getting taken out, I thought that was great. That was good. It was entertaining. But when we get to this finale, and as Dana, you already mentioned, this pretty much is the introduction of the Legacy show. And I believe that Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora have said that this episode 10 was meant to introduce you to what was coming next, which is fine. But overall, I would say while it was entertaining, it was very disappointing for me on multiple levels. Um, and I will get into later why I have my particular name, Omari Hardwick's agent. It's not really about that, but I am going to talk about that later because I know a lot of people have made videos about when they saw that IMBD listing. We will get into that later. All right. We didn't make a video, and I will explain why that was. But I do want to talk about this episode and focus on this first and foremost. So, my takeaways for this episode, let's get into what happened with Tommy and all of the characters on his side in this episode. As Dana already mentioned, you had the heartfelt speech by Kate at the very beginning. And I thought that was very well done, very good. And of course, I'm glad they showed Herman again. Basically, it shows you that Kate has changed as a character. She feels a lot of remorse for all of the harm that she has caused in life, and she's trying to apologize to those she has hurt. I think that was important for us to see that, to know that this character has changed, even though we saw in the previous episodes she was being very careful, says, no, I can't drink. She was definitely had a different mindset. And then even when Tommy was talking to her in the previous episode, she was talking about, yes, you need to process your emotions. I understand how you feel, how I might have contributed to that. So, yeah, I like what they're doing with Kate's character. The fact that she is going back to Queens, as Dana said, yes, this means that she can very much be a part of Legacy. So I didn't have any issues with that. Of course, Jenard is very angry because of what happened to Diamond, and he's waiting outside the funeral because he plans to take out Tommy as soon as this guy walks out. Now, CBI, obviously, they should be a little bit smarter to know. You probably got to know Tommy's going to have some type of protection. But of course, and Miguel had the police officers there as well, working for them. So that was good for you to see that. So basically, the episode started with the tension, just to let you know. This is going to be one of those episodes where it's going to be a lot of back and forth until you see a showdown at the very end, which I think is fine. There's no issue with that. But let's continue, shall we? Tommy, obviously, him and Miguel were supposed to meet up with Che, and then Che tells him, "No, that's okay. You have to bury your brother." Che will understand that because he's a family man. Okay, we got that. So then you see this shot of Tommy walking down the street, and he gets attacked by Vic Flynn's boy, who we've seen in the previous episode, trying to take out Tommy. I don't know what it is with these people in these shows trying to use knives to take out the other people. They're horrible assassins. They always do a terrible job. But of course, Tommy takes him out, and then he contacts Vic. And of course, as you know, I'm not a huge Vic fan. I do like Shane Harper as an actor, okay? Give him his flowers. He did a good job this season, whatever. But I don't like this character. So I will get into later what I think about that particular decision. But yeah, he finds out. And obviously he's angry. We'll get into that. But sticking with Tommy's side of things, obviously Maria, she doesn't tell Tommy she plans to leave to go to Mexico. This doesn't happen until later in the episode, where she decides to take herself out of the equation as things continue to escalate with this war, which makes sense. I didn't have an issue with that. D-Mac, I will say, very interesting what they did with him in this episode, because he is obviously grieving the death of JP, his father, and he has all these emotions. And I do like that the fact that the character finally acknowledges his role and mistakes that he has made that could have led to what happened to his father. And I think that's important, because you saw even in this episode how he was treating his whole relationship with Genesis. Yes, he gave her the money so she can go to school. But it's just that the character is forever changed. And obviously, he still wants to get revenge. But I do want to see where they're going to go with this character when they go into the next show. Because clearly, he will be a part of whatever happens next for Tommy and Tariq. So I do want to see where they go with that. And then, of course, I will also give a shout out to Shanti, because in this episode, the last episode, first and foremost, we made jokes about the inside man and his elaborate plan to take out all those people at the church. So, of course, I knew Jenard was going to get revenge, and of course, he took out that guy, and then of course, Shanti goes back to Tommy, and Tommy tells her, "Hey, you need to get in. Why don't you go and approach Jenard and find out what they're doing?" And of course, they have that scene where they're talking back and forth. And I will mention this: Stars is very slick because the day before this episode aired, they released a clip of that conversation between Shanti and Jenard, talking about, because at that point we didn't have any context, talking about, yes, Tommy is to blame for what happened to Diamond. I didn't like how that went down, and obviously we should work together. They released that clip to make you think that Shanti was going to flip on Tommy. So that was very clever, very well done for them to do that. When you watch the episode and find out that Tommy is the one that told her to go in there and try to convince Jenard. And obviously he didn't buy it. She didn't buy it either. So eventually Tommy does approach Grayskull and tells Grayskull, listen, Jenard is the one that took out King Kilo. So they get Grayskull to give them the intel back and forth. I didn't have any issues with that. And then, of course, I'll get to the shootout scene. But before that, I do want to address this, okay? This war between the cartels, okay? They had this particular scene, which I thought was interesting, where they decide to meet up with Che again, and Ortega is there, and they're talking about, we have decided to work now with both cartels are working together now. And then they decide, okay, so what we're going to do now is take out the individual responsible who has been causing all this chaos. And of course, as a viewer, they made you think, okay, Tommy, this is where Tommy finally, he can't get out of this situation. And instead they say, no, Che gives him the gun, and then basically he takes out Ortega. Now, let me say this right now, ladies and gentlemen. Ortega, in my personal opinion, one of the weakest villains they have ever had on any Power show. This guy, they built this guy up from the start of the season. And we were talking about this on the show, like throughout the weeks, where you see he had all these people that were working for him that were close to Tommy or were close to people who were trying to get to Tommy, made you think he had some elaborate plan to take out Tommy. And then once he finally got out of jail, I'm expecting this guy to do something. Episode 9, he's just sitting, relaxing at his place. He gets approached by Diamond and Jenard, and he says, no, Tommy is my kill. In this episode, when Jenard is with his crew, Ortega sends him a text and say, hey, I'm going to send you more men, take out Tommy Egan. So this guy is absolutely, completely pointless as a villain. I was expecting him to have some type of showdown with Tommy in this episode, because it would have showed you, because again, he was angry with Tommy. He took out my uncle. And yet nothing happens, and then Tommy takes him out easily. I thought that was very disappointing, because it felt like it's way too convenient. I know we have said that word multiple times on this podcast, but this episode specifically, with the way they wrap up certain storylines, way too convenient and a very quick way to resolve the issue. And I will get into that cartel thing later, because I do have a question about that for you as well, Dana. But let me continue on, because I'm almost done with this stuff with Tommy. Pretty much, yeah, so they have the showdown with Jenard and the crew, which again, a lot of back and forth shooting. Tommy does call in the favor. He does call in the favor. We knew it was Tariq, because we saw that clip from the trailer last week, and we already knew, okay, yeah, this is when Tariq comes in. And I do agree with what you said, Dana. The shot where Tariq takes the shot and they slowly reveal it's Tariq, I thought that was great. That was good. I do have some issues with Tariq, how he was brought into this show. I will get into that later. But yeah, I thought that was fine. And then, of course, you have this whole thing where they're talking back and forth. As you already mentioned, Dana, Tariq has the conversation with D-Mac, which is interesting. Talking about losing a father when we really know what happened with Ghosts. Okay, yeah, that was very interesting. And then you get to the final part of that scene where Tommy and Tariq are on the rooftop, and basically Tariq is telling him, this is your opportunity to build a legacy. Let's work together and make more money for everybody. And then, of course, they end it with the sentimental Big Rich Town. Obviously, I will always enjoy that song. So I can understand people like, yeah, this is great. But to me, why I say it's still underwhelming is because if you are a Power fan, you knew a long time ago there was going to be Tariq and Tommy having their own show, because Starz announced this a long time ago. When they announced that they were working on Origins, they also announced they were working on another show in which Tommy and Tariq were going to be involved. So anyone that watches this particular episode and is surprised to see that Tariq shows up and that Tariq is a part of this, I don't know if they have been paying attention to all the stuff that we knew this. And then, of course, Dana, you had the clip in the previous recap where we saw Tommy with the crew. With, Jenard was there, Tariq was there, Braden. So we already knew this was happening because they told us this a long time ago. So I'm not really surprised. I will say it was good the way they revealed Tariq, but that was still like, it is what it is. I'm not surprised. It's just an underwhelming moment. But we'll see about where they're going with Legacy. Okay. And my final takeaway for this episode, and I promise this is going to be a little bit shorter here. Jenard and Vic. Okay. I know, like I said earlier, Jenard was not successful in taking out Tommy at the church, but I will say this, and I will give 1,000% credit to you, Dana. I'm 1,000% glad that Jenard did not go back to using that needle, because they had a scene where he could have used the needle and he decided not to. And you made the excellent comment on the last review and said, Gary Lennon probably wants to redeem this character because Gary Lennon also was a former drug user. So it makes perfect sense, because in this entire episode, I was expecting Jenard to just be off the rails, high. They went in a completely different direction. And I appreciated that, because it got to the heart of the matter, is that Jenard is the one that was responsible for what happened to Diamond. And so, yes, and then you saw at the end of the episode when everybody turned against Jenard and went their own ways, that was, I think, the best way to handle this. I did not want to see this guy get high again and then just go, because it would be too predictable. So I have to give them credit for that. Do I think that Jenard should have still got taken out? 1,000%. But like I said multiple times, Chris Lofton I think, is one of the best actors on this show right now. So I kind of understand why you want to bring him back. So I'm okay with that. However, Vic, nah, son, get this guy up out of here. I was very surprised to see him try to get back into this situation. Obviously, he did see the news report about Diamond getting taken out, and then that prompted him to want to come back. And honestly, because I did exchange this message with Gary, and I'm going to give his thoughts in a quick second. To me, if you watch the beginning of Force, you saw when Tommy came into the city for the very first time, he had an interaction between Jenard and Vic. And in this particular season, a couple episodes ago, they had the whole thing where Jenard was asked to go talk to Vic to try to get the people who basically took over the bar. And he basically was saying, yeah, Tommy took over all this stuff. So this is our opportunity to get payback. So basically what they did is that at the end of this episode, they reset that. So now going into Legacy, Vic and Jenard, now they're going to be coming into Tommy's hometown of New York City and going to try to cause disruption there, because Tommy, this entire show, was in Chicago taking over everything. So I understand what they were trying to do with that. I get that. But Vic is a character. He is not anywhere close to being interesting the way that Claudia was. That's why I thought it would have been better to keep her towards the very end, and you can have this whole thing where maybe she tries to launch Dahlia in New York City. That would have been another issue. It would have been competition for Tommy. That would have been a different way to handle that. But I understand they had to take her out because of Liliana. I get that. But Vic, to me, is just not an interesting character. Like I said, this is a crybaby guy getting people to try to do his orders and take stuff out. So I don't know what they're going to do to this character in the next show. But I will say him teaming up with Jenard, okay, we'll see where they're going with that. But overall, like I said, I thought this particular episode, it was entertaining, but it was still disappointing because there's a lot of things that were happening in the show that I was waiting to see a proper build up to. And I just felt like a lot of stuff was rushed, stuff that we've talked about multiple times on this podcast. So I wasn't satisfied. But again, I'm glad it is the end. Am I excited for Legacy? We'll get into that later. But before I do any of that, let me get into very quickly what Gary had to say about this episode. And again, shout out to Gary for basically leaving these comments and allowing me to basically say, yeah, I could talk about this. Okay. So Gary watched the episode this morning. Okay. These are some things that he had to say. Okay, here we go. I just finished the episode now. And everything that you said, because I was talking back and forth with him, he said everything you said about the show was correct. It ended way too conveniently. It felt very underwhelming. And the setup for Legacy is starting to make the show feel formulaic. Okay, Ghost ended with Tariq being on top, and Force ends with Tommy's Koalition being on top of Chicago. Having Tommy and Tariq team up to go back to New York seems hella repetitive now. Yes, I agree with that. Vic and Jenard are no longer a threat, so that's laughable. I agree with that comment. Also, the Ortega war ended lackluster as well. The moment Ortega was back on the streets in episode 9, he should have been an immediate threat to Tommy, as they've been beefing the whole season. But he may as well have still been locked up because he didn't do a damn thing. Yes, I agree with that. And this is also, he said this, they failed to make me excited for Legacy at all. To me, it seems like it will be a rinse and repeat show just so that they can continue to milk the Power audience. But if they don't shake things up, people will get tired of this series. I agree. And this is the last comment, and this is probably the most controversial one, so be prepared. And your boy, Tariq St. Patrick, still isn't believable to me. I'm sorry. They want us to believe he's this super G'd up boss, as if we didn't see him running from Kane for half a season in the final season of Ghost. Dude was really running from Kane across campus, and he almost got his ass handed to him by that conscious dude he ended up having to kill. But we're supposed to believe that he's Tommy's equal now? Like I told you guys, Gary went in on these comments, so I got to give him a shout out. But I agree with everything he had to say, because yes, these again, we are at the end of the season, so we can basically talk freely about all the stuff we thought about the show. But yes, that's what he had to say about the show. He may have more to say in the future. But Danny, did you have any comments based on what Gary had to say? Oh, you're muted.
Hello? Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was muted. I want to say this. I understand what he's saying, but you know what triggered me? Not triggered me in a negative way. Triggered me in an I'm going to play a devil's advocate and twerk on the fence and give you yeses and nos. Tariq's on top. Also, Tommy's on top. This Legacy show could be their downfall of the characters. What other way can you go? Up has to come down. So what if they think you already have everything right now? You have everything that you wanted. Remember, he's a silent partner. Tommy is running Chicago and has Miguel and all of the crew and everyone working under Shanti and Shanti herself, all working for him. You have a depressed dude with no family and a crackhead teaming up together to try to take you down. But overall, you don't have any threats. You know, as you explained, Ortega, who was supposed to be the big main kahuna of a threat, is not a threat anymore. So you just have like 2 people ready to go, I'm going to kill you. That's it. And you can make the argument like, oh, there's nothing that's really a threat to him, so therefore where can the show go? But what happens if they start trying to take over more things? Because Tariq is supposed to be a silent partner. Tommy is supposed to have your kingdom already. Your kid is technically set. Everything is good. It's going well. Maria, see, I pronounced it right this time. Maria is taken care of. She even took care of herself. She was like, you know what? I'm good. Not only is she keeping the baby, not only did she not flee, she took herself out of the equation to go to Mexico. I thought we were going to Mexico. I got really excited too. I was like, yes, Legacy Mexico edition. But the point is, he wants more. Tariq wants more. Sometimes when you get too greedy, that will trigger your downfall. And when you look at crackhead number one and depressed guy number one, they're really desperate right now. So who's to say what they might do to take you down? New York is in Tommy's blood, as is in Tariq's blood. Because I was like, why are we going back to New York? I'm depressed. I'm still depressed about that. I don't want to see New York City anymore. Look at my window. It's New York City. I'm all going to the show, New York City. I'm a New Yorker through and through. I just want a little escapism that's not New York City. I still love New York. And I understand why they're going back to New York. I feel that what a perfect way to be born and to die in New York City. I don't think Tommy is going to last long. And we had this discussion a million of times before. And even Tommy has said, I know how the ending ends. You know, you people his age don't tend to stop and they don't tend to retire and become old. I feel that New York City could be the perfect place where Tommy dies. And then we're going to see the downfall of Tommy. The movie could be the kind of the semi-rise to Tommy, him reflecting on everything that he kind of did and was wrong, and ends with the death of Tommy. Because it was like, I could see myself going to New York where Maria and his kid is playing in the street where he grew up. Maybe that's the scene right there. And then he dies. He's taken out. And what's also really interesting is Tommy couldn't go back to New York City because of everything that everybody was on him. Remember, that's why he fled to, was supposed to be Miami, which is where I also thought we were going. But he ended up going to Chicago. So you got that whole entire situation. Remember, there was a scene in Ghost where Tariq, remember that? Remember there was that cop who was always on his behind? It was a female cop. She was always on his behind, and she has him on civilians. And so it's like, oh, Tariq can't go back to New York now. But where are we going? New York. That could be their downfall. And I think that Tariq, and I'm not speaking for Tariq, I'm just wondering, when you start doing a show and you're continuing a show that you've been on since you was a kid, and I'm talking about, I think he was a preteen when he started the original Ghost. I'm not speaking for him, but I'm wondering if he would like to move on. So what a perfect way for him to move on would be his downfall, his death. And in his will, he gives everything, all the money to Tasha, who Naturi Norton has a new show on, also on Stars, called Nowhere Man. Simple plug, shameless plug. I have an interview with her coming up. We want to post that. Woo. But he puts it in the will where his mama and his sister Yaz gets everything. And that's the end. And grandma gets a piece of change too. Grandma's still alive. So I'm thinking that maybe this could be a good thing. I know I said this is terrible, it's repetitive, but again, I'm gonna work both sides here. This could be a good thing because where else can you go but down? And their downfall could be way more entertaining than their rise. So, devil's advocate.
I think that's an excellent point that you made. And since you already brought that up, I'm just going to go right into that topic because that is, we spoke briefly back and forth last night because I watched this, like I said, I watched it at midnight last night. And I think that in order to make the show interesting, I feel they have to go in that direction because, like you made the comment about the interaction between Tariq and Tommy, something felt off about that interaction. Because those of us who saw Ghosts, it's the exact opposite of what happened with Tommy. Tariq and Diana lost their kid. Okay, obviously, Tariq is now at the top of the food chain. He is the apex predator as a ghost, like you said. This is what he is doing. So he has all the money, he has all the business stuff happening, but he doesn't have a family. Whereas Tommy does have a family. He has built up a family there. So it did kind of feel like when he heard that Tommy was expecting is going to be a dad, there could be some jealousy there. And then the other thing we know about Tariq as a character is that this is a character that you should not trust. Like the whole thing about the phone call and making the phone call is that Tommy said, "Oh, I'm surprised that this number still exists and that you picked up the phone." The thing about this is that Tommy should know. You have to remember, Tariq killed your best friend Ghost. So while you are appreciative of how he has grown within this business, you gave him props about how successful he has and that he's a G. Like I said, I don't look at him as an equal to Tommy yet still. But for Tommy to look and understand and have respect and appreciation, I understand that. But Tommy should also know, okay, I will trust him to a certain degree. Because the one big thing about all of this is that you have to remember when you go back to Ghost, when Tommy came to New York to go after Tasha, and I have a comment to make about that as well. But when he came to New York to go after Tasha and all that stuff went down, when he had the conversation with Tariq, he did not offer Tariq any help about what Tariq was going through. He said, "No, this is your war to fight. I have my own war to fight." And yet he's calling Tariq in to deal with CBI, Jenard, the Koalition guys, whatever. Okay, but you're going to ask him for a favor and then think that he's not going to ask for something in return. That's why I say, for him to just come in and be willing to help his uncle, yes, they are family. But you have to understand, Tariq has to have an ulterior motive in this as well. And I would like to see what it is that he is going to ask for Tommy in exchange. Could it be that he wants some of Chicago, or does he want some of the product business that Tommy has? They have to answer that question with Legacy. That's why I say it will be a good show if Tommy has his own enemies to deal with, but if he also has to worry about, can he truly trust Tariq? That would make it an interesting show to a certain extent. And then the other thing I will add is that with Jenard and Vic being a part of this, what I also think is going to happen is that obviously Jenard he will not stop until he gets Tommy. All right. So I think that once again, there can be some people that end up as casualties in this war. And if one of those people happen to end up being Tasha or maybe Yaz, that will be an issue, because now Tariq is going to be mad and be like, "Tommy, you brought all this drama here to New York." So again, that will be more motivation, because like I said, Tariq can already be a little bit jealous, but that could be even more motivation for him to be like, okay, Tommy is a problem. So yeah, I can't trust him either. And eventually he could turn on Tommy as well. So I do want to see where they're going with this. But the one quick point I will mention, because I think you're probably going to want to say something else. One thing that I think is very interesting is that, with Tommy and Tariq, like they're on two different paths. Joseph Sikora has said that he knows how the story ends. I do agree. New York is the perfect place for his story to end. I personally do not think that he will make it back to Maria or his baby. I think that's why he made that call at the end. He made that comment. I don't think he's going to get that happy ending. And I also think that, like you said, Tariq, Michael Rainey Jr., this guy is ready to move on to do other things. But I just don't know how they're going to do this in terms of how they take him out. Of course, with D-Mac, do you think that D-Mac can be someone they decide, yeah, he can now be the one to take over the real legacy and this show really be about him? Is that a possibility? I mean, I don't know. But they can go in a lot of different directions. So I guess we have to wait and see what's going to happen. But I want to get your thoughts, because I do have one more comment I want to make about this before we go to the next topic, but I want to get your thoughts if you have anything that you want to add.
Okay, yay. So you know how the show, the universe of Power likes to repeat itself sometimes, and we have the continuation of certain themes. I'm starting to wonder if, Tariq views Tommy as a mentor, right? And of course, as you mentioned before, when he came to him, he was like, "You got to be a man now." And to me, it's still kind of, I appreciate Tariq. It's just so crazy you're calling this 20-year-old boy to be like, I need help. And then like he brings only like 2 other people. They got us surrounded. They're everywhere. And I'm like, there's like 2 other people. What are we doing? But in regards to repetitive themes, what tends to always happens to a mentor and their mentee? Someone gets killed. And it's usually the mentee killing the mentor. And I immediately was like, Breeze. Remember the whole situation with Breeze? Now, granted, it's not the same circumstance because from what we're told, we're going to finally see it. But from what we're told, we were told 2 different things. Remember, we were told Kanan's point of view, which basically was a setup to like a ghost ancient kind of situation. He killed him. Oh, no. And then we was told Ghost's point of view. And then, of course, we'll get the show, which is the truth. And we technically don't know what the truth is because we have 2 different versions of what actually happened to Breeze. But the conclusion is Breeze was murdered. And Tariq forced his daddy to tell him about the story of Breeze. And this was after Kanan told his version of what happened to Breeze to make Ghost look like the bad guy. Tariq already killed his father because he wanted out and he felt like he was stomping down his wishes. He didn't allow him to grow and really accept his life, so he had to take him out. Tommy is something that's different. It's not like, hey, I don't want you to grow anymore. We got to get out. Tommy is someone who he welcomed to New York. This was all his idea. But there is so much history that is kind of negative towards them. Because remember when Tommy was like, yeah, I like Ghost too. And kind of like stared at him like, but you killed him. And he was like, I didn't come here for the past. I want to build the future. But I'm kind of starting to feel that we may get a repeat of Tariq might kill Tommy. Now, this is again as a theory, because of that whole mentor-mentee situation that we've seen before. He's already taken out his father. Kanan took himself out of the equation. And he really liked Kanan. Remember, he was like, Kanan really took him under the wings, even though it was nefarious to get back at Ghost and was also going to kill him. But the point simply is this. I'm starting to wonder and feel if Tommy is safe because of family. Because he kept saying, we family. But we have to also remember, family does stick up for each other, and they can also be our downfall, our literal downfall. You know, Ghost was his family too. He took out his dad. I just don't feel that Tommy is safe. And the way how he was looking at D-Mac, because D-Mac was, you know how you expect to get a reunion of a sort where everybody's all like huggy and lovey and like, yay. One of the things that come to mind is when Scandal had a crossover with How to Get Away with Murder, and we thought Olivia Pope and Annalise Keaton was going to be like this, but instead they were like this. You know, the way how Tariq kept staring at D-Mac was like, yeah, you got a family. That's crazy. He wasn't giving any kind of energy towards D-Mac. Not even like, hey, your dad's dead, my dad's dead too. Let me help you navigate this. And I understand that this is the finale. We may get this in Legacy where everybody's all chummy. But I'm just going off with the body language was like, everybody got a family but me. Even I was expecting, why are you calling him Uncle Tommy? Only I could say Uncle Tommy. Even though technically we both the nephews. But it was kind of like, yeah, that's crazy. And then he gave him that look where it was that sideways glance. It was like, all I was waiting for the face to go like, but we didn't get that. But I don't know. Maybe it was just a really bad introduction for how they put Tariq. And Tariq, you know, he's still in his, because I don't know the timeline between the very end of Ghost to the very end of Force. I don't know what that timeline, when that phone call actually occurred. I don't know. And we do know that Tariq doesn't have a car. So him walking all the way there gave him a lot of time for him to think. And he could get very angry with them thoughts because sometimes you're going over your mind over everything. And like you stated before, he shooed him away when he was like, Uncle Tommy, I need some help. And then he's looking at Z-Mac and like, yeah, but I got Uncle Tommy. Uncle Tommy's always here for me. And it's like, I knew him before you. And this is how he treats me. He tells me to go be a man. And meanwhile, I was I'm older than you in a way. And maybe it's like just it seems very friction like right now. And so far I'm just wondering what's going to happen between them in that situation, which is why I am talking myself into being excited for Legacy. So, yay.
I think you gave a great explanation, and I also am on the same path as you, as trying to talk myself into this, hopefully being a good show. I will mention this. This is the last thing I'll mention about Tariq, because you mentioned the timeline of the events, so on and so forth. I do want to make this comment, and this might be a little controversial. Hopefully not too controversial. To me, it feels as though the way they introduced Tariq into this show, it was definitely selective in a way in which they addressed the conversation that Tariq had with Tommy in Ghost, right? But my issue is that on this particular show, at no point whatsoever did we ever have a reaction to Tommy finding out that Tasha basically tried to frame him and say that he killed Ghost. I'm not saying they needed to show him going to New York, but it was just like it was an afterthought and not something that was even bothered to even be a part of that. And I have an issue with that, because I remember when Tommy did make up with Tasha, he was telling her about, oh yeah, I have a family, I have a brother, all the stuff he's telling her. That's why I was like, as a viewer, and I'm not the only one that thought that they were going to initially do this, but of course I knew they wasn't going to as the season continued to going on. And you made excellent points as to why they wouldn't do that. I just wanted to say, though, that definitely is a plot hole for me, but it tells me that they were very selective in what they decided to address on this show, because they went back to that conversation between Tommy and Tariq, and really that is important. But again, that conversation is important once again because Tariq, I'm sure that he could have used his uncle's help to deal with what he was dealing with. And Tommy's like, you got your own issues to deal with. You deal with that. I will deal with mine. And then all of a sudden now Tommy reaches out to him and say, nah, nephew, I need you now. So I was a little annoyed about that. But overall, listen, we knew Tariq was going to be a part of this. So I wasn't surprised, because again, they've announced that this show was happening some time ago. But now we need to see where they're going. And hopefully it is interesting, it done in an interesting way. I definitely want to hear what others think about this as well. So if you're watching this show, leave a comment and let us know if you were satisfied with how they brought Tariq into this show. And do you think Legacy is going to be good? I do think going back to New York City for the reasons you mentioned make a lot of sense. But I am hopeful that they go somewhere else, because the bigger challenge would be go somewhere international. If you really want it all, you really want to expand, you should go somewhere where you are, again, new territory. Like Tommy going to Chicago was interesting because it's a place he has never gone to. But I think him and Tariq, they should go somewhere else. But it is what it is. Go ahead, Dana. You going to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate something. Legacy is not like a one season and we're done. This is going to be multiple seasons of a show, which is why they continued with this is what I see. The more I talk, the less I'm angry kind of at what it was to me as a viewer. And I'm not saying that this is what Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora stated at all. But to me, as a viewer watching and knowing what studios knowing what studios do to successful shows so that they cannot pay their actors, and the fact that this was labeled as a finale when in actuality it wasn't a finale at all, to me viewed as like an FU to the studios, as you're not going to stop our story and we're not going to give you a satisfying conclusion. We're going to continue everything that we want to continue on to now Legacy, which again, why nothing got resolved in that way in terms of what's going on with the different crews and why didn't people die. So I want to reiterate that I feel that forever how long Legacy runs, which is going to be more than one season, I feel maybe 3, maybe 4. I know 4 is like the sweet spot in a way. 3 to 4 is a sweet spot because TV shows are like, we're not going to pay you anymore. So whether it's 3 or 4 seasons, I kind of feel like even if it's 2 seasons, season 1 is going to actually be that conclusion of Force. And then season 2 could be, hey, this is how everything wraps up with Tommy and Tariq. And then don't forget we're getting that movie. So it could focus on the Tommy Tariq comfortable ending, and then whatever happens to Tommy now moves off into a movie. I don't think it's a movie in terms of let's go to the theater. Maybe it might get a limited 1-week release, which would be really cool. Imagine seeing an actual Power movie like in the movie theaters, but it's definitely going to be on Stars. So I just kind of feel that is what we're going to get. So when we say like we're frustrated, we're going to get an ending that is going to be an actual ending. And that may not be in 27 or even 28. It's going to be a little bit wild for now. So just, we're temporarily frustrated, but we're not permanently frustrated.
That's a good way to put it. Yes. So yeah, we'll see where they go. One other question that I do want to ask, and then I have one other thing I want to get into also, but then I'll let you get into what you want to say. I want to ask you this question as well as the audience. Were you satisfied with the conclusion of this war between the cartels? Go ahead, and then I'll give my answer.
Here's the thing. Yes and no. Jenard was a liar. Everybody lied in this. So yes, because the actual truth came out. And therefore, you don't want to work with a bum who's been trying to cross everybody in order for you to get on top. You know what I mean? There were a lot of crossing over where, it was King Kilo, but no, it was actually Tommy. But then Jenard, the musician, randomly shot him. Things didn't make any sense. And I'm really happy there was the 2 main actors who kind of like figured everything out. Remember there was a scene where Jenard pulled a gun out on, oh God, my brain. But he pulled the gun and was ready to kill the people for who's about to leave. And then like his friend who got the gun pulled out on him, pulled the gun out on Jenard and was like, don't do it. Don't you do it. Right? That scene was so delicious. I love those 2 actors and I want them to be in in Legacy, because I just found them to be so delicious. But anyway, they figured out the whole situation and was like, no, you're just a raggedy liar and you still high. So I like the fact that everybody figured things out to begin with. Tommy had to come and tell the truth. Then they were starting to put together the pieces. It was like, I don't like this. We're going to go all form our groups together and now work with Tommy. I like that part. But yes, you can argue it was too convenient because, listen, we don't know who to believe. So now everybody could have been paranoid and could have started attacking each other, which is kind of something that we already saw before. But the point is, that would be like, oh, what's going to happen? We don't know who's going to make it. We don't know who's going to survive. But now everybody's just working on the same side. It's like, meh. And even going back to that entire cartel when Che called the meeting and was like, oh, the Estradas and the Marquezes, they're going to work together. And I was like, but why? Like you said before, it's a little bit convenient. And then when it was like, there's somebody who's been causing trouble every time he got here. And my brain was like, oh, Miguel's going to get it. He didn't get it. It was the other dude whose uncle got thrown out the window. Yeah. Oh, I thought
exactly.
You said,
yeah. No, I was
so
I
was like,
yeah, exactly.
That
no,
would
continue.
be perfect. No, it's just there were so many missed opportunities to make it perfect that my situation is that we're keeping storylines that could have ended, and now it's going to be too long. I feel that you ran out of time, and now we're going to just stick to storylines that are going to just be dragging. We're dragging along characters. Now, Again, that does not necessarily mean we're going to see Miguel in Chicago and in New York. That doesn't mean that at all. They could, they're off screen, but I just kind of like, we still forgot that Miguel is still a terrible person at the end of the day. And so I was really like, expecting karma or something to catch up to him and for him to get taken out. But sometimes that just doesn't happen at all. And, terrible people still keep living. And they end up destroying more things. So that just could be just Miguel's, fate. He just keeps us allowed to destroy things. So, yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I do believe, again, yes, it was convenient that everybody all decided to come together now with the two, the two cartels specifically, because there a lot of bodies dropped. And it's like they just, well, let's forget all of that. Let's just come together for the sake of business. I did have a bit of an issue with that, but it's like I just said, whatever. It's the end of the season, so I guess this is how they wanted to resolve that quickly. But I will say this: I agree 1,000% that this particular show, like, it introduced certain ideas and then never had any follow up to those ideas. One in particular with Miguel is that we have to recall there was a scene earlier in this season where Miguel and Maria got into it because Miguel actually took out one of Che's relatives to basically excel in his position of power. And Che did not know this. This is why I was wondering, are they going to circle back on that? They never did, because it felt to me like the Che character this entire season, he is basically telling Tommy and Miguel, you do this, you do that, and always threatening them. This is why I thought something was going to happen to that character at the end of the season where they could turn the tables on him and say, nah, now we're in control, and they take him out. That didn't happen. So I didn't understand that. But again, this is what I said. They had a lot of ideas for certain stuff. And I don't think that particular storyline with Miguel is going to get answered anyway, because Miguel isn't going to be a part of this other show. At least I don't believe he is. No. So there's a lot that they tried to do. Not everything got addressed. Could they come back to it later if they wanted to? Yes, but I kind of feel like it doesn't matter now because everybody's on the same team. So even if Che found this out, it doesn't matter now. They're all working together. So I just felt like, yeah, but that's why I said they had a lot of ideas, but at the end of the day, they just it felt like they made things convenient and they rushed certain stuff so they can get to some type of conclusion. But like you said, it will continue into Legacy. I just don't know if that particular storyline is going to continue, because they made us believe for the entire season, well, something might happen to Miguel now, and that may impact the relationship that Tommy has with Maria, or vice versa. We already knew Tommy was never going to die. Obviously, that was not going to happen because this guy is the star of the show, and because Joseph Sikora himself said this is the end of Tommy's story in Chicago. So I will say this: when they start advertising Legacy, shout out to both Joseph Sikora and Michael Rady Jr. They're phenomenal actors. But do not tell us in a video when you get to the final season of Legacy, this is the final time that we're going to see Tariq and Tommy in New York or wherever the hell they are. They better not do that again, because I would be very annoyed if they did that.
Well, remember, they did in a way. They did. And I think that the cancellation was kind of jarred everyone's plans for how the show was originally written, which kind of goes into like Legacy is going to be season 4 of Force. And then we'll get into like an actual Legacy show. They did say, what was it? Same Tommy, different location. And we already see him in New York. And who's to say that all of season 1 is going to just take place in New York? It's just to establish everything in New York. We could then move on to other places. I want Barcelona. I want someplace that's always warm. I want to see legs and shorts. Come on now. But the point I'm simply saying is this. I think that was a clue. Now, I could be reading way into this. I am a child of Marvel, and we read into things way too much. But that could be, him saying, we're going to move away from New York. We just need to establish some things. And then we'll move on. So,
That makes
I'm a
sense.
faith.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No, that makes sense. So one last thing that I want to get into, and then I will give the mic back over to you in case there's any other points you want to talk about with this episode. Let me get into this Omari Hardwick agent comment. I have to mention this. Now, let me say this. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we saw episode 10, IMBD. Somebody decided to add Omari Hardwick as an actor for the series. Obviously, Dana did post this on our community tab, and there were people that were commenting because everyone thought, okay, this means that Omari Hardwick is coming back. And of course, shortly after that, I saw there were a lot of videos circulating where people were talking about, oh yeah, he's coming back. Dana, I believe, also, as she had already said, she has an interview with Natari coming up for her new show. Did she not tease and say that we may see some type of return? So, and then of course I saw Miguel, the actor that plays Miguel. He had a lot of interviews online where he was talking about, Ghost and Tariq. So people obviously were having fun with this stuff. Also, Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora as well made the comment in an interview talking about, I hope that Omari is ready to pick up his phone call because we're going to call him, so on and so forth. So everybody played to that advantage. Stars took advantage of that because what I noticed online is that right around 11 p.m. last night, Power Force was trending before the episode even aired. This is an hour before it aired. So no doubt Stars should have some phenomenal numbers for this particular episode. But let me say this, all right? The reason why I did not want to do a video is because, number one, with IMBD, people can edit and add its actors. They can make changes to those pages. That's number one. But also because Joseph Sikora himself has said multiple times teasing about Ghosts. Like he made comments in the past, like, I want to know what happened to Ghost, where Ghost is at, so on and so forth, trying to get people interested in the show, which is fine. But I will say this. I understand there were a lot of people that made their videos, and it's all good. It's all gravy. I am actually Omari Hardwick's agent, so if I was not contacted about an opportunity, obviously he wasn't going to be on the show. But in all seriousness, if you are a fan of Omari Hardwick, if you are a fan of Power, then you know already Omari Hardwick had an interview a while back where he said that he was actually asked to come back and they could not agree on the price for what he wanted. So there was no follow-up to that conversation. And that happened, I believe, about over a year and a half ago, which is the exact same time when this show was filmed, because this show was also filmed a while ago. Okay. So you have to look at how the things are lined up. So what I'm basically saying, though, is that we knew Ghost wasn't showing up. But here's the other little tidbit of information that I don't think anybody really picked up on, because when people were reporting about Omari Hardwick showing up on the IMBD page, in that exact same interview, or maybe it was a different interview that Omari Hardwick said, when he said for him to come back to Stars, it would have to be the perfect opportunity. And specifically talking about Ghost and who this character was before he became Ghost. So, IMBD, right? When you look up Omari's page right now on IMBD, they have him listed for Power Origins. We have said multiple times it would be a great idea to have this guy narrate his story, similar to how you have 50 Cent narrating Kanan's story. This is why I do believe it is a strong possibility he actually is on that show, because that's one listing that is still on IMBD. Now, again, they can take it down if they want to, but I find it very interesting how the IMBD listing for him on Force was taken down. This was not. This is still, to this day, right now on IMBD, his name is listed for Power Origins. So, obviously, they haven't said anything else about Power Origins. We know they're filming right now. I would hope, because this is what Omari's wishes was, to talk about Ghost's backstory. I would hope that he is involved with that project. If not, that is a massive L by Stars. But just my opinion. But we'll see what happens. But Dana, do you have any thoughts on what I mentioned here?
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, here's the thing that I want to reiterate. As you stated, anyone can edit IMDb. Anyone can also edit Wikipedia. I have done it multiple times. I'm apparently an international superstar. But the point that I think, and I understand why people are so like, oh my God, Ghost. I think it's time to move on. I just really do feel that way. But if we do have Amari, it would make perfect sense for him to be narrating Power Origins, because that is the character that he has created. This is the character that everyone is building up to. It isn't fair for 50 Cent to be able to narrate Raising Kanan. And here we have Legacy. Yeah, and we don't have Amari. Like, great, Tommy can also come and narrate, but he has his own show. Ghost is dead. But it would be nice as a great homage to be like, this is what you created. This is your whole, your legacy, essentially. Come and do these narrations. So that's all that I want to see him in. We're not going to get the adult Omari, the adult Ghost, anytime soon. But I did want to say something, is that Omari Hardwick, the actor, has a new project that they just announced with Gerard Butler and Haley Atwell. Remember that was Peggy? Was it Peggy? In Captain America, the female version of Captain America in the Marvel stuff. But he has a new movie called Empire City, which is basically a hostage movie inside of New York City. So see, everyone's going back to New York. It's a big rich town, but it's a hostage crisis that erupts inside New York City's Claiborne building. Gerard Butler was sold as Rex, a firefighter alongside his squad, and his NYPD wife, Danny, who is played by Haley Atwell. They must fight and navigate through the entire building in order to rescue captives inside. So that should be fun. Hardwick is playing Hawkins, the film's antagonist. So that's fun. I'm excited for him. Let's look forward to what Omari does with other projects and not keep him stuck in a project that he filmed over, 10 years ago or however long it was. I mean, again, we can have a little bit of like a narration, but let the man move on. It would be nice. So that's all I got to say about that part.
I agree. We'll see what happens. But I know that you actually have to do an interview soon. You're going to be talking to Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora. So was there any other things you want to mention? Yeah. Was there anything else you want to mention about this finale before we wrap up?
Yes, there is. I have 2 notebooks. Give me 5 seconds. I loved the ending, even though, it's kind of like corny. They threw the word legacy. I love the ending. I legit thought that Tariq was going to throw Tommy off that building because, again, he'd been side-eyeing people. He didn't walk around with that stink face. I was like, oh. And then, what made it even extra was the fact that, Maria, I'm coming home to you, baby. We won. I was like, shit, you don't die. Because that other time when you're like really happy, you're like, we won, baby. It's like, did you really? What is it going to cost you? So I did like that. I like the fact that he says, how did it go? Basically, he was talking about, coming back to New York, and we had like the mental image of him thinking of Maria, on the street, you're playing with his kid, which is really nice. But then also it's like, yeah, but I don't have a kid. Someone's wondering again with Tariq. So I like this. He says, are you asking me to leave my woman and everything I built for her? He says, I'm not. I'm not asking you that at all. I'm saying Uncle T doesn't leave money on the table. So see, that's more greed. You're going to provide for your family the best way that you can. And from where I'm standing, it's just more money to be made for you, me, and your family if we partner up. So that whole thing is, still more greed, still more money, still more of everything that you want. But it also shows that this is the only thing that Tommy knows how to do. And when you tend to be born in the streets, you tend to die by the streets. So I felt that monologue was like setting things up for like, he's going to go soon. Now, not soon, but like within the span of maybe 5 years, we may get with him. And then it's going to probably be over. So that was really interesting. And then he says, I do like the sound of Maria and my kid being on the street where I grew up. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Like he was really like luring him in. And I hope that it's like just because we're family and not because I'm going to kill you. But I really like that because he showed no emotion. Really. It was like, hey, Uncle Tommy. It was like, yeah, that sounds good, don't it? Kind of. I like how he did that. And basically, he just basically said how he really wanted him to come back. And what do you say? Start somewhere. Start some new shit or what? So we're not going to get the same players that we got in Force. We're going to get new people, obviously. So I do look forward to that, and that does seem exciting. One of the other things that I really liked is, Shanti was basically crowned the new Liliana. Her rise has been exceptional because I wanted her to die from day one, but now I'm like, no, she's a queen. We do not harm queens. We protect the queen bee. And that is exactly how I feel for Shanti. She's always wanted it. She was just always surrounded by stupid people. And now she's standing on her own. And yeah, she had to team up with the White Devil, but that White Devil got her, Liliana. And, okay. All right. So I'm really excited for her. But I'm also kind of wondering, will Jenard come after her? So that's what I'm slightly curious about there. Another thing that I really found that to be interesting was, Tommy is fully, like I said, he's happy. He's really happy with that. He said he's fully merged into that lifestyle, which again, die by the gun, tend to be. So yeah, I just like the fun that there's a new thing. Miguel seems happy, which he doesn't deserve to be, but hey, for him, he's happy. And also, I did like, kind of going back what you said originally, was the entire apology that Kate had to the family. So now that she's redeemed, she just says, I just want to die surrounded by loved ones, people who love me. And I want that for her. I want D-Mac to move in with Kate and them to have that relationship that Kate never got with her kids. And that tends to happen in general. Parents form the relationship with the grandkids that they weren't capable of forming with their own kids. So I want that for them. They love each other, and I'm happy for that. And that's kind of everything that I really wanted to say. That this was initially, it wasn't great, but I am learning to appreciate what they've done for us. So I give it, if I was to grade it, it gets a B. It's a B from me. Maybe a C minus. Maybe a C minus. It's a C minus, but see, it's not a D, which is good.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair grade. Like I said earlier, it was still entertaining. I mean, you definitely can have some critiques about how certain stuff felt convenient or rushed, but overall, I mean, more than anything else, I'm glad this show was over, and that's not really to throw shade on what has been done. This obviously, like I said, the final season I think was the best season they've done with all these seasons they've had. But I want to see what they're going to do next beyond this legacy. I like I said, I hope it does not become repetitive, like Gary has mentioned. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But overall, I will give them credit that yes, they were able to finish off the show. Now we will see how much longer we have to wait until we get Raising Kanan in Origins. Raising Kanan is definitely coming later this year. I would assume maybe around the springtime. But maybe maybe the summertime as well. I don't know when it's going to happen per se. But what I can say is that we definitely will be back to cover that. So definitely stay tuned for that. And before we wrap up, was there any final shout outs that you would like to give, Dana?
Thank you for everyone who has listened to us and put up with my mispronunciation of Maria. I'm dyslexic. I see an I. It's Myra to me. But anyway, thank you so much for that. And thank you for watching us and to listening to us and listening to our interviews that we have. Also, check out Richard's gaming channel. There's a lot of things going on my channel that will be restarted in very shortly. We do have Wonder Man that is coming up. And I don't think I can say anything else about Wonder Man, but we will. There's some things coming up, Wonder Man. So that should be interesting. And we also have Chris Pratt. We have a whole interview with Chris Pratt about Mercy. It's a 30-minute interview. So yay! We talk about all kinds of technology and AI, and it actually is a very good movie. And we have Night Patrol with Jeremy Flowers. We're still trying to get CM Punk. His schedule is very interesting, but we're trying. We're trying. And of course, we have Unreal coming up. We have a lot of things that are in the works for the other channel as well, but we will have a ton of interviews and discussions and reviews. I'm getting into reviews. I'm scared of cameras. We're getting into reviews and a lot of red carpet events. I did a whole entire cast with Law and Order SVU, and Law and Order Organized Crime, which they are praying for another season because it ended on a cliffhanger, and the actors are like, what's going on, NBC? We want to be renewed. So we have that over there as well. So just stay tuned to both the entertainment channel, and Richard, of course, has more game stuff because we're in gaming season, and everyone is also preparing for the thing that used to be E3, Summer of Game Fest or something.
That's it. Summer Game Fest. Yep.
It's not bad for someone who still has a Nintendo. So I got the name right. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to us and our takes. And even if you don't agree with us and try to insult us, which is weird, thank you again for giving us engagement. Some people like the screenshot photos. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Like Dana said, I would 100% agree. Check out the entertainment channel. A lot of things being worked on over there. And actually, we will be talking over there again soon because there is something coming up very soon we're going to be talking about. That's all I'll say for now, but stay tuned for that. Yeah, and as for the gaming channel, we are a busy season. Things are about to get started really heavy in February, so there's a lot of things we're working on that I'm working on I can't talk about, but if you are into video games, check out the channel. As for this channel, like I said, myself, Dana, and Gary, we will be back for Raising Canaan whenever that returns. And, we'll see if there's any other things we do in between that. But in the meantime, thank you all for your continued support. As always, leave your comments. Let us know what you thought about the finale, what you think about Legacy. And we hope you all are having a great start off to having a great new year so far. Take care. Stay healthy, and we will talk to you all next time.